Welcome to the Horror Interview Show. I'm Skullface. Today I'm interviewing Joe Cornet about directing and acting in the horror film, The Night of the Caregiver. Was being a cast member and also the director of this movie challenging?
Well, it's always challenging because you're doing two very different things. But when I first started making features, I was writing, directing, and starring in them. So that's the way I started. That's the way I got to think about things. And I don't. It's now a process for me. I don't. I've been able to blend the phases of the acting discipline with the directing discipline. And because I was trained as an actor, I think like an actor. And a lot of actors have said you're an actor's director. So I'm always thinking like that. But you do have to compartmentalize and then hopefully combine the two. It's not easy, but it is fun.
What do you like about directing?
I like taking a script and trying to give it the best vision I know how to do that I can give it. And I enjoy the production aspect of it. I like being on set. I like working with a really good cinematographer, such as we have had in our last four movies, starting with Promise, which was a Western I made a couple of years back. And his name is Sam Wilkerson. In my estimation, he's one of the best in the business. And I like working with the camera, and I like seeing where the camera goes and how to place it and how to set up the shots. And I'm very much into composition. And Sam works that way too. So it's a very happy combination of the minds here. And I I I just enjoy my days on set.
Were any scenes difficult to film?
In this film, Night of the Caregiver, there are some rather harrowing moments. There is a monster in it, as you have no doubt seen. And there are some confrontations between the monster and a couple of the actors. And the there's a choreography that goes along with any kind of physical violence or fighting or anything like that. We had Robert Madrid on this set to choreograph a lot of the stunt work. So those were kind of challenging because you have to know where to land, how to land, what your mark is. I mean, you always have to know where the camera is and what your mark is. But when you're struggling with somebody in front of a camera, you've got to be very mindful of everything that the stunt or the fight choreographer in this case has mapped out for you. And everything was all pre mapped out.
What do you think viewers will most like about this movie?
Well, this is going to sound strange. I say this for all of my films. I hope they have a great time. I hope they have a marvelous time. And I realize this film is filled with a lot of fear, terror, dread, and psychologically disturbing things. But I hope they can also see the fun in that, if that makes any sense. I like to be positive about things, and I hope that they see this, and I do hope they get scared, but I also hope they see, we invested a lot in the tone and the color and the look of this film, and hopefully they'll enjoy not just the terror, the fear, and the dread. Hopefully they'll enjoy the visual, the composition of the shots, the color, the shadings, the lighting, etc.
As the director, how much input did you have on what the creature looked like?
Um, Alexander Nevsky and I actually had some input into what we thought it should look like. But we had a terrific makeup team on this. And we really left it up to Maria, who is our chief makeup artist. And she came up basically with the makeup almost entirely on her own. And well, I couldn't say entirely on her own. And I think that demon, that thing, is pretty scary. And I think it's a tribute to her ability in her profession of what she was able to create, because it's pretty creepy. And Maria Brew came up with it all on her own. Just, we had some input, but very minor. So my great thanks to her for her great work and her team on this.
Did any bloopers happen on set that you can talk about?
Everything went pretty smoothly. There were a few, there's always a line flub here and there, and there's, I will mention this. Natalie Denise Spurl, who plays Nurse Juliet, she had a very tense scene where she was on a phone call with her roommate, played by Anna Orris. And the scene, we shot the scene out, and I didn't yell cut yet. And Natalie threw in just did a throwaway line. Just, she made it up, and it's in the film. That's all I'll give you. You have to look for it, but it's a funny line, and I decided, let's leave it in there. And a lot of people have pointed out that line to me, saying that's a really clever line. That was great to have that in the script, except it wasn't. It was Natalie's line, and she came up with it, and the camera was still rolling. And then finally I said cut, and we left it in there. So that was a fun thing that happened. But everything went very smoothly. I was blessed with a great cast and crew, and everyone was very positive, and everyone loved working with each other, and got along great camaraderie between Natalie and Eileen Dietz, who played Lillian, and they became great friends in real life. And everyone just worked with great positivity, with their best game, to make this thing happen.
Previously you have directed films that you've also written. Is it easier or harder to direct a film that someone else has written, and why?
Well, in a way, because that's how I got my start, was writing, directing, and acting, all three at the same time. Because I figured if I wasn't going to do it, who else would? And producing at the same time. But I think in some ways it was kind of a relief. And when you have a great writer like Craig Hammond, who just writes unbelievably great screenplays, it actually makes it easier. And then it's, my responsibility to see that the vision is comes through, of what Craig wrote.
Which part of working on this movie did you enjoy the most?
We have some what I'll call action sequences, which I mentioned before. I think those were fun to work on. But what was fun was the location itself, because we had several locations, because we have some scenes of Natalie driving around and me driving around, and my scene with Eric Roberts was shot elsewhere. But the main body of the film was shot at this house up in the Hollywood Hills, and we had a great art director named Dean Carr. And I think watching him work and getting all those little details in the background in each scene was, to me, just fascinating, because walking into this house after it had been set dressed was something else because the props and the background little items that he chose were unbelievable, right down to a great scene with a cracked mirror. So I think that was kind of one of my favorite parts, was watching this house built up into this place that was just not quite right and ultimately very evil. And the house itself is a character, much like the house in Psycho is a character. This house is a character.
How many takes did you generally do for scenes and what went into that decision?
I think for this film, we just did minimal amount of takes. I mean, we got as much, I always like to get as much coverage as I can, you know, with the, starting out wide and then punching in. Uh, because everybody was on their best game, uh, we didn't have to do a lot of retakes. I mean, I like having things for safety, and I like having options in the editing room. So I shot enough to where I would have those choices that I could make once I got to the edit. But I think because everyone was so focused, we were able to shoot it very efficiently.
What do you like about acting?
I enjoy investigating the character and getting into that character and finding that character's backstory and trying to find what I like to call the rhythm of the character's language. And once I get into a certain groove of rhythm, then I've got the character nailed down and the lines nailed down. I have a process that I go through for all of this, but I really enjoy the in look, you read the script once, and then you read it again, you highlight things, you start making notes, and then I like the process that comes through with all of that. Um,
Have the
that's the
awards that you've won for your previous work helped your career at all?
Well, when you win an award or two, it always helps validate your work. So I'm very appreciative. Uh, we've I've been lucky enough to show my films in London, uh, all over the North America, and in quite a few film festivals. And I've been lucky enough to pick up um, a few of these guys along the way. This was for my film Promise, but I think that awards are very important to validating your work. It says you did a great job, and it it helps when you have that little laurel on your movie poster afterwards.
You've done a few westerns. What did you like about that genre?
I love the Western genre. I always have since I was a kid. And I was lucky enough at a young age to be exposed to all kinds of Westerns, classic Westerns, current Westerns to me when I was growing up. And um, I just enjoy the genre because to me, um, Westerns are timeless. They're like Greek mythology. They always have a hero and a villain, and the hero is always challenged in some uh, extreme way. Um, and all the elements of Greek mythology are in good westerns. At least that's my theory. And you look at the great westerns like High Noon, or The Searchers, or The Wild Bunch, or The Long Riders. They all have elements of what I'm talking about, of the hero, of the villain, of physical or emotional or moral challenges.
Was there any particular reason why you decided to work on a movie in the horror genre this time?
Well, mainly because I have never done it. And I thought this would be a good challenge to myself. And I'm certainly a big fan of horror movies. I'm a fan of horror movies. I'll give you an overview list, by no means in order. But the horror films I love the most are films like this: Rosemary's Baby, The Haunting, the original Haunting, The Omen, Burnt Offerings, The Thing, um, The Shining, of course. I like that. I like all horror, but I like that style of horror the best. And of course, I'm a big fan of the director Dario Argento, and I had hoped to bring somewhat of an homage to this film, Night of the Caregiver, to Argento, because the story is just strange enough and compelling enough. It almost is like a Dario Argento film story.
Are you likely to do more horror movies in the future?
Well, I have nothing on the books yet, but I certainly hope to. I've got another film coming out very soon on the heels of Night of the Caregiver, and it's our second installment in the Rio Bravo series. Of course, we had Gunfight at Rio Bravo, shameless plug, came out early in the year. It's been about 6 months, I guess, or more since it's been out, and it's been doing very well. And we have the sequel, Taken from Rio Bravo, which will come out very, very soon, probably the first part of next year. So I already have another film ready to go and ready to be released. But I hope Alexander and I continue to look at the horror genre, and we'll see how this one plays. So far, we've been getting some very kind words and nice notices about it. So yes, I hope to return to it.
Why did you decide to make movies?
Well, it's a very long story, but I'll try to shorten it for you. Um, I did not start off. Uh, well, let me back up. When I was 12, 13, 14 years of age, I was always playing around with cameras, both still cameras and film cameras in those days, and movie cameras. And I was always filming stuff, and I was making these little films. And this lasted until about my early 20s. And like so often happens in life, you take a different turn, you go down another road for a while. And I did that. And sometime around 2010, 2011, I turned my attention back to this. And I thought, I'd like to pursue this again. And so I made a focused study of, the digital camera technology that is now available to us. And I spent a lot of time in writing classes and acting classes and so forth, and filmmaking workshops. And one thing led to another, and I started just making short films again, just for fun. And one day I thought, let's write a feature. And I wrote a feature, and then I filmed it, and I financed it myself. And I believe, because I was prepared when opportunity met that preparation, I was able to get my first feature distributed. And then my distributor at that time wanted more, and I was already in the process of making my second feature. So I cranked out two more. And then I met Alexander Nevsky, and now we're working at the level we're at. And I've done six motion pictures. I've directed all of them. I wrote the first three. The second three were written by Craig Hammond, but I'm in all of them. And I'm about to, as soon as we can possibly do it, direct my seventh feature.
Where can people follow you?
People can find me on Facebook at Joe Cornet, Cornet. They can also find me on Instagram, San Rafael Productions, SANRAFAEL Productions. And they can find me all over YouTube and the interwebs, as I call them, on one thing or another. But those are the first two I mentioned are the main places to follow. Facebook probably having the bigger concentration of my films and what's up with me.
I would like to thank Joe for the interview. For people watching, you can like, comment, share, subscribe and whatever else you do to videos if you're watching in the future.